Let's sculpt some ice out of XPS foam, of course, for our Hot Toys figures. The whole process in this episode. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Crafted by Metamorphic Customs. I'm Desi, and in this episode, yes, again, another diorama, and if you remember the last episode, we did a Jagged Earth Rock diorama, and I promised that that was the first of a two-parter. That was the sister base to another base that was coming up, and the base we're going to be working on this week is an ice sculpture diorama terrain with a little bit of water effects and even some icicles. Plenty of ways to make icicles when you're building and crafting dioramas, but I like this method that I learned years ago, and it's kind of fun. You'll see. But let's get right to it because I'm really excited about this one. This was a great process. I hope you guys can follow along, and I hope you guys try this out on your own. Let's go to the workshop. I'm going to start with this circular piece of foam core board. This is the same foam core board and cut to the same size, which you saw in my last episode. I'll put a link up here on the top right. Then I'll begin cutting pieces of XPS foam. I'm just cutting this down to have smaller pieces that are easier to work with for the purposes that I intend here. And as you can see here, I'm going to cut this particular piece down at an angle. And that's to have more of an angled bottom surface to this to the bottom, the foundation of the diorama. Basically a wedge shape. And other ones I'm going to cut down the middle to get just different varying heights that are going to be used for the foundation again of this diorama base. And I'm going to cut out just random shapes. Now remember, what you're cutting out here is really going to be big chunks of ice or iceberg or just ice in general. So there's no right or wrong way. I'm going to cut out the foundation. I'm going to leave a little room towards the back so I can do the larger iceberg pieces that are jutting out and upwards from the ground. And I'm going to leave a little crack or a crevice down the middle. And that crevice will later be filled with realistic water. It's called realistic water from Woodland Scenics, but it's fake water. It's just a clear resin, if you will, and it'll look cool. And I'm just cutting out little pieces of rocks and gluing it on there with hot glue, my preferred glue. This larger chunk of XPS foam, this will be for the back. And if you're wondering, this is the same XPS foam I use on every project. It's about an inch thick. It's the easiest one to find in my local area. If I need it to be thicker than that, like the big chunk that I'm cutting into right now, I'll just glue multiple pieces together. In this case, I glued two, making it a 2-inch piece of XPS foam. And I'm carving out this larger larger ice that I'm gluing onto the back here. And I'll just glue a few pieces here, 3 pieces to be exact. And here you have a foundation. This is very similar again. This is supposed to be a sister base to the diorama in the last episode. So you can see it sort of has the same shape. That's what I was going for. It's still a little different, but close enough. And I'm going to use Mod Podge, and I'm going to mix that with hobby grade crafting white paint, just basic white paint. Put a 1-to-1 mixture here, mix it up, and I'm just going to apply everywhere. The reason I just don't use white paint is because Mod Podge acts as a sealer for the foam, which is great. It helps protect the foam, especially if you want to clear coat it later, because if you spray it with a rattle can, if you don't do it right, it could eat into the foam. So this Mod Podge helps to protect that later on. And I'm going to use a dark green and blue here. It doesn't really matter which color, just get close enough to these. And I'm going to mix those two together to create a dark teal, if you will. And that dark teal I'll use to paint the crevice that I've left between the rocks. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that. It's the ice. between the ice chunks at the bottom of the base. This will later be the frozen river we'll create with the realistic water. It's nice to have that dark base, and I'll just apply a couple layers of this dark teal paint. Leans more towards blue than it does teal, but the green does help in the mixture. And when I am done and I'm satisfied with the layer, I think it's dark enough, I'm going to use that same color and dry brush just the edges of the rock where the ice, there I go again, the edges of the ice chunks where they meet each other and where they meet the bottom XPS foam core. And I'm just using a very, very little amount of that paint. That's why it's coming out much lighter than the one you see in the crevices in the middle. After I've done that, I'm going to use, guess what? More Mod Podge and some Woodland Scenics Soft Flake Snow. Mix that about a 1-to-1 mixture. Maybe you can put a little bit more of the Soft Flake Snow than you do Mod Podge. It's up to you. And I'll use that mixture to come in between, again, just like I dry brushed. I'm going to do the same thing with this mixture. I'm not dry brushing it, but I'm going to use it to apply to the same areas. And that is between the chunks of ice and the foam core board at the bottom. Then I'll also apply some of this to the top corners or top edges of the chunks of ice at the foundation, as well as all the upward facing ridges, if you will, like places where snow would accumulate on this ice if it was snowing. In other words, wherever you think it looks good. That's the key here. Just place it wherever you think it looks good. You can't be wrong. Next up, I'm going to use Vallejo Model Color Dark Persian Blue and Model Air Color Dark Green. Mix them 1-to-1, mix them equally, and then I'm going to use some Liquitex Airbrush Medium to thin it down a little bit. And I'm going to use that mixture to spray in the crevices, wherever you think a little bit of shade might hit. And this gives a very nice blue, cool color to this base. And I want to make sure I also get the areas that where the water that's not there yet will meet the edges of those chunks of ice. Because there's so much white here, I do want to add I want to exaggerate a little bit with this blue to make this base pop a little bit. You don't want it to overpower the figure it'll be on top, but you don't want it to be lost in just white. So you want to add a little bit of color here. This is what I've done. And for the first time, I'll be using some Creatix White Pearl. I've used Creatix before, but I've never used their pearl colors. And this is nice. What I did was I thinned this down with the Liquitex Airbrush Medium, and I just basically applied this everywhere. And it just, you can't really see it in the video, so that's unfortunate, but in person you can. It gives it this nice pearlescent color that shimmers when the light hits it from certain angles. Here comes the interesting part. Creating icicles. And from what? Well, from plastic cutlery. The clear, transparent kind. Gotta make sure it's clear, transparent. In other words, it won't really look like icicles. But you break off the teeth from a fork. I put one end of that broken off fork tooth, in this helping hand, which is a little metal clip on the left. I grab the other end with a pair of pliers, and in the middle, that's right, I use a lighter to heat it up. Now, the flame isn't directly hitting the tooth. If it were, it would blacken it. You don't want that. But once it gets hot enough, you'll know because you're slightly pulling with the pliers and you can feel it give. And this is what you do. You just, when it gets hot enough, it'll start getting soft and you pull it as much as you can. And it gets really thin in the middle, gets fishing line thin. You're not going to use that middle part. You're actually going to cut that off. You're going to use either end. The two ends you've created here are your icicles. And it's pretty much that simple. I like this method because it's instant. I mean, you've got icicles in less than 30 seconds. It's hard to see here on video because it's a little clear, transparent part, but you can kind of see it there, and you'll see a close-up of it later. But I'm making a lot of these. And then when I'm done, I just get hot glue and apply it to the top of the icicle and adhere it to the bottom of the ice chunks that you've created on your base, you previously created on your base. And it creates a pretty convincing effect. In my opinion, it looks like an icicle. And just like the last base we did, this one's also going to have a wooden plaque base or bottom foundation under what you've already created. And I'm using PVA glue. In this case, it's Aleene's PVA glue, but you can use wood glue. That's fine too. I'm using mostly this, and I'm going to smear that on to this base with a brush so it's nice and even, but I'm also going to leave some dry areas. Looks like I'm painting a target here, but I'm going to leave some dry areas because I'm also going to use hot glue. The reason why is because this PVA glue takes a while to dry, and in the meantime, this hot glue dries immediately. So the hot glue will keep it in place as the PVA glue dries. PVA glue is better, but hot glue just sets much quicker. So I'm using both of them in conjunction here together. Make sure this stays on over the long run. And if there's any horizontal gaps between the bottom of the foam core board and the top of the wood base, I'm going to paint that edge in white. Reason being is I'm going to now cover that with the snow mixture with the Mod Podge and the soft snowflake. But if you just, that Mod Podge and soft snowflake mixture is transparent in the thinner areas, so you want to make sure that you get any missing spots with that white paint first. Then once that dries, as you can see here, I'm coming back in with that Mod Podge soft snowflake mixture that I used before on the base. This is the same mixture, and I'm just applying that towards the bottom to make sure everything is integrated well, the wood base at the bottom and the foam core base at the top. And time for some Woodland Scenics Realistic Water. This is pretty easy. It takes a while to dry and you have to do it in layers, but it's usable right out of the bottle. I'm just pouring it into this little espresso cup, and I'm actually going to mix this first layer. This dark blue teal paint is the same one we used in our airbrush before. I had some left over in the airbrush cup, and I just poured it into this cup because I knew I would be using it now. And I just added a tiny drop of it to that realistic water since it's acrylic base, and I created this transparent bluish or teal color. And I'm just going to apply that with a pipette, however you say that, into the crevices in the center of the base. The thing is, it says it in the instructions on the bottle, but you can't apply it more than 1/8 of an inch thick. If you do, it won't dry right, and if it does dry, it's going to dry all milky, so you want to make sure you don't do that. Just apply it real thin, give it 24 hours to dry, and you end up with something that looks like this after all that work. I'm proud of this one. This was fun. You know, you don't usually get to make a diorama that's mainly white unless it's something snow or ice related, and this one didn't have any black rocks or gray rocks or brown rocks underneath. This was just white chunks of ice. Man, those icicles look nice. Sorry. They were fun to make and they look cool. So, and let's take a close-up look at the middle of the base so you can really see that transparent realistic water, as it's called, or it's like a resin. Once it's hardened, it's hard to tell, but it is transparent. It looks cool. And here are those icicles again. Love these things. This with the realistic water combination on the white and with the light blue, light greenish colors. It's just, everything comes together nicely. And let's have Cap break out of that ice prison. And for some reason, he's already holding Thor's hammer. Clearly not a scene from Endgame on this ice, but I don't know, I just think the figure looks good on it. Speaking of figures that look good on this, I like this guy too. How about Heavy Mando? Love the colors on this guy. And the yellow, the construction yellow really on his shin guards and knee guards really stands out against that ice in the back. This guy too, this guy just works well here. I love this design, this Death Watch Mando. He just looks good on any base, but this one works well. I like it. That was a little different, right? We've done snow-based or winter-based dioramas before, but this is the first time it's a full kind of like ice sculpture, iceberg kind of weird thing with the cracked earth and the water effects and the icicles. It was just fun. And a little bit of iridescent paint there, a pearl paint. That was fun to do. I hope that you guys try that yourselves. Don't be intimidated by the process. It always seems, I know I've been hearing a lot of people, it's like, oh, you make it look easy. Look, it takes a little bit of practice, sure, but you'll be surprised if you just start it and give it a shot. It's fun. Hey, between waiting for pre-orders to come in, give this a shot. Like I said, it's fun. As always, I didn't mention it at the beginning, but I'll mention it now. Materials are always in the video description below. I've also included links where you could purchase these products online. Some of those links, not all of them, but some of them are affiliate links. No extra cost to you, but helps out the channel. But again, always look at your local hobby stores too if you need to pick something up there. If you like this video, well, then just hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification icon to know when those episodes are uploaded. Does that make sense? Hit subscribe, hit the bell notification. Yeah, something like that. Just hit subscribe, guys. That helps out too. And go down to the comments and let me know what you think. And please, if you have your own way of doing any of the things I did in this episode or in any other episode, let me know. Happy to know, happy to try out new techniques. And if you want to see a specific video on anything, whether it's a specific type of diorama, environment, or it's just a technique like, hey, I don't know how to use this tool. Can you show me how to use that tool? If I know how to use it, I'll show you how to use it. And if I don't know how to use it, well, we can learn together. So let me know down in the comments. And until next time, guys, stay crafted.